Hello everyone, Christina here. Welcome to another live stream, weekly live stream here at my YouTube channel. I'm glad you're here. Tonight, I'm going to be focusing on this background stamp that was released in my April 2026 release. This is the Aubrey Blooms background stamp. And interestingly, there actually is a stencil set that matches that does the same design, but in a slightly larger format. So I thought I would do something a little bit different using this background because I don't, like maybe I've seen someone do this. I can't recall. I thought I would do something a little bit different. We're going to be watercoloring the stamped image. We're just going to be watercoloring in the actual petals. So I've done some prep work and I've got quite a few of these already stamped, ready to go. And I'm going to need your help picking out which one I actually work on tonight. But before I do that, before we get to the watercoloring, I stamped it on regular cardstock in Midnight ink from Conquer the Night. This is regular cardstock, so I would not watercolor on this. But I did just want to show you what it looks like when you just stamp it normally. It's a very sharp image. And you can actually use the stencils to color in the flowers and the stems if you like, or you can go straight onto it depending on the color of your background. I think if you stamp it in black, it hides all color that you might add to it. But if you use any other color, anything other than black, sometimes if you kind of go over the stamped color, it will take on a little bit of that color and then it might not be as seamless. So in that case, you might want to use the stencils. So I'm first going to show you just really quickly how you could use these two together when it's just stamped normally. And then we'll get into the watercolor background, and that's when I need your opinion, and I've got a poll for you. So let me grab my grip mat. Is missing. I swear I saw it somewhere. Oh dear. I had it out just like not long ago. There it is. Well, it's one of my grip mats. This is one that is very, very stained. But you know what? I'll take it. Normally I have my grip mat like hanging out on top of hanging over the top of my trash can, and it's not there. I'm thinking I probably moved it so it wouldn't be hanging out while I was out of town last week. But this is one that I washed, so I'm hoping it's sticky enough. Okay, so this is my stamped background. This is on, let's see, this feels like 80-pound Neenah Solar White. I stamped it in Midnight ink from Conquer the Night. Then I stamped it multiple times until I got a nice solid background. It's not perfect. There's some little spots that I probably could have even stamped more, but we're gonna go with it. Okay, so the stencil set, like the actual design of it, is like this portion of the stencil. So this is actually this flower right here. So let's just start with this one. Why not? And there'll be plenty of the stencil hanging off my paper here that it'll hold it in place. So this is really just going to kind of isolate the area where I'm going to be ink blending and make it a little bit easier so I don't have any of my color going into that dark navy blue ink, which I don't know that it would really show that much. But especially if you stamped it in like a lighter color, like let's say you stamped it in like a light gray or something for a light gray background, then it definitely would show. You know, I don't think there's any way around it at that point. All right, so here is my ink stand, and I'm going to use 3 colors of ink for the flowers. I want it to be kind of dramatic. So I'm going to be using Cranberry Sorbet and Nectar. I'm going to start with Nectar because that is the lightest color. And I'm going to just ink blend this in very lightly. Let me grab, this will work. I think that'll work. I'm going to kind of start the ink blending off to the side a little bit. In fact, you know what? Let me zoom in so you guys can see what I'm doing a little bit better. All right. All right, and I'm going to start from the center. I'm putting my brush right in the center and then using a circular motion to kind of give it a little bit of a glow. Do you see how that looks? I want to preserve some of that white at the very outside edge of each petal. But I do want a little bit of this nectar to show. And I also want to make sure that I take the nectar out far enough so that when I add in the other two colors, that there's still some nectar showing. But I want it to go almost all the way out to the edge, with just a little bit of that white showing. I think it'd be really pretty to do this and have every single flower be a different color. And the way this stencil set works, you definitely could do that. All right, I'm going to come down here and just add a little bit of nectar right there on the edge there. That's probably all I'll do on that one. All right, moving on. I'm going to go to Sorbet. All right, and I've got to switch blending brushes because this is a little bit of a darker ink. All right. Once again, I'm kind of tapping off over there. Now I'm going to bring in this Sorbet just right at the center. I'm just intensifying that center. Okay, I've got a nice glow going there. And then I'm going to bring in just a little bit of cranberry. And I want this to be fairly dramatic, so I'm going to switch to a smaller brush. I just have this little tiny brush from Waffle Flower, which is Shader 0. Grab a little bit of that cranberry, and it's pretty dark and intense. But I'm just going to be kind of brushing from the center and like pushing away and adding that. And I can even pick up the ink from the stencil itself. I'm going in with a smaller blending brush because I want to make sure that I have a lot of control over where the ink is applied. I think it would be very, very easy to accidentally apply too much ink if you were to use a larger blending brush. Even this smaller brush, it's pretty small, but I think it would be really, really easy to accidentally add too much when you're going in here in the center. Okay, I think I could even add one more color and have it be even more dramatic. I'm kind of thinking maybe I should grab like a dark brown, maybe like a nutmeg color or espresso. I'm thinking maybe cocoa actually. It's one of the new colors from Conquer Tonight. I'll just bring in a little bit of cocoa. Hi, Dana. Hi, Betsy, Leanne. Hello, hello. All right, I'm going to bring in just a little bit of cocoa just because I think I could intensify that even more. So there's cocoa. This will probably be very juicy because this is a brand new ink pad that I've never used. And grab a brush here. Same brush, but I've just used a lighter kind of orange on it. Okay, so I'm going to bring in just a little bit of that brown. That's just going to really intensify the edge there. And I'm actually kind of going a little bit the other direction too, kind of going into the stencil because I realized as I was pulling it that it was leaving kind of like a bald white spot right where the stencil meets the paper. Okay, just using like little flick motions to really get that. You could also use a purple, but I'm going for a brown because I want it to look just like a darker kind of red shade, but you could also use a purple. I think that'd be pretty. Or even that same midnight color that's on the background. That would help mimic things. Okay, I love how intense that looks. Let's remove the stencil and see how we did. Actually, before I do that, Where are all of my microfiber cloths? You know, you leave for a week and you forget where everything is. I'm like, where did I put them? Did I put them in the wash or something? I am so confused. I had like a huge stack of microfiber cloths. I am so confused. You know what? I bet I did put them in the wash. All right, well, we'll just use a paper towel, I guess, to clean this stencil. Okay. I'm just kind of grabbing it. I don't want to blend it into those petals because we want to keep them nice and clean. Okay, so let's lift this up. Oh, that's really pretty. And you get a little bit of that cranberry, the red glow coming out. I think that looks really, really sharp. Okay, we don't have time to do all the ink blending on this today, just because we want to get to the watercolor. So I'm just going to finish up one of the flowers, just so we can see what it looks like. So let me grab this center here, and we'll just do, kind of get that on there just right. I've chosen Stardust for, is it the stamen? Is that what those are? All right, I'm just going to bring in some Stardust just right over the top. And then, just because we have the brown out, we might as well. I'm going to go back to the cocoa and just add a little bit of that brown just right at the base of the yellow. Alrighty. And then we'll do the, I didn't even think about the leaves, but adding in a little bit of that gold, gorgeous. I think if I was doing leaves on this one, I'd probably do it in probably artichoke, maybe artichoke ink, something like that. But this is just an example of how you could do the combination of the background with the stencil. Okay, so that's technically not the focus for tonight's live. Believe it or not, this is just a side, we went on a little side quest to show you how to use this background stamp with the stencils and how you can still get like a really dramatic kind of ink blending by doing it this way. I really love the contrast of the sharp white line on the edge of the petals with the really dark center. I think that could be really, really pretty. Okay, so we're going to put the stencils aside and we're going to do watercolor because that's, I was kind of thinking, is there a way I can combine watercolor with this background? And I'm hoping we can do it. Okay, so here is the background stamp. Once again, let me put these brushes away. I've still got stuff out here. Okay, here's the background stamp. I've done some stamping to prep for this, and I've picked specific inks because I want to make sure that as I paint over the top or I paint to the edge of the petals, that the ink that I've already stamped does not bleed. So I'm using a waterproof ink. I've picked out 3 different colors of ink for 3 background choices, and I'm going to show them to you right now. What's interesting is that these inks don't entirely look like the colors on the front of the ink pads. So here's the blue. I stamped it multiple times. And this is on watercolor paper. It's very, very thick. So it's on watercolor paper. This is actually Fabriano Artistico Extra White. This is the 9x12 pad. And I chose this size of cardstock because I needed to cut it down to 6x6 so that I've had plenty of room around the background to adhere it to a board. So this is in the color Twilight from Versafine Clair. Then we have this one, which is in the color Rainforest. It's a much more kind of emerald green to me. So then we have emerald green. And then this one, I thought it would be more of a wine color, but it is very purple. And I think this is Chianti. Is that how you say it? Really, really pretty. Different colors for each. And depending on the color of background, that will determine what colors we make our flowers. So I thought I would give you all a choice. I'm going to put a poll up here so that you can choose which color background you think you'd like to see tonight. And we will leave it up for just a few minutes or so. I wanted to give you all a chance to come in and see the live, get it starting before I did the poll. So that's why I'm waiting until now to do the poll. So green is not winning at all. It's kind of neck and neck with the blue and purple. We're going to kind of see what happens. Either one, like whatever I do tonight, maybe someday I'll change it up and do something different with that other color, whatever we don't do. Okay, it looks like purple has moved far enough ahead. It's like 35% to about 50%. So I'm going to end the poll. I don't think it's going to change much. And we'll go with the purple. And that purple is actually this color right here. It's linked down below in the video description if you're wondering about the specific color I used. Okay. All right. So now we're going to take our lovely little hardboard I've got over here and pull it out. And we're going to tape this down to a board because we're going to be doing all of our watercoloring. And I don't think it's going to be too much water all at once. Oh, not that tape. That's not strong enough. We'll go on with this one. I don't think it'll be too wet. I don't think we're going to get much warping, but just to be safe. Just to be safe. And I want to make sure that I'm able to use as much of that background as possible. So I'm actually going to leave just a little bit of a white gap down there. Yes, Betsy. The ink pad looks like it would be a much darker wine red, right? So it kind of surprised me. I'm like, oh, this is not the color I thought it was going to be based on the color of the ink pad. But, whatever. Maybe, to be fair, maybe it looks a little darker when you put it on regular cardstock. Watercolor paper does tend to eat all the ink, even when it's a pigment ink. Yes, Versafine Clair comes in lots and lots of different colors. Really beautiful colors. All right, so we've got that all down there. And I'm going to be using for all of my painting today, I'm using my Realbrush Pro markers from Karin. Here's what they all look like. I'm just going to be picking out some different colors that I think might look nice with this kind of dusty purple background. I'm thinking like I could almost do kind of the same colors I did on the navy blue background when we did our ink blending. I could do kind of like corally pinks. I think that would look really, really pretty. So I'm just trying to think here. I think this color could be really pretty. This is one of my favorites. This is Red Lilac. I'm trying to think here. I think we could do this one, which is pale pink. And just to change it up, just so we have a little bit of a darker shade, maybe this dark red. What is this? Burgundy. I'm thinking that might be interesting. Like these three colors, maybe. I kind of want more of a peach. I don't want the pink, I want peachy. Okay, maybe we'll do this one. This is Soft Peach 2, aptly named. Okay, so I'm going to start with the lightest color. I've also got some water off to the side and my paintbrush. Let me get a paper towel. And we'll see how this goes. I have no idea if these colors will look nice as we're going along here, but I guess we'll just find out. I might need a palette, and I am not seeing my palette here. Oh, there it is. Let me pull it out. I have my keyboard charging on top of stuff, and it's like happens to be right on top. I have this plastic palette just in case. And let's start right up here. I'm just going to add this color. This is actually going to be a very similar painting to what I did for that video that I shared on Friday. Just adding in that peachy pink. In fact, I can be even faster and a little messier. I do want it to have a very watercolor look to it. So I can be really fast and messy with it. It gives it a little bit of a different look when the paper is already wet and then you bring in color. All right, so let's do that on this one right here. I'm adding a bunch of water to this petal. And I'm coming in with the marker and just adding that color right on the edge. And then I can spread the color around with my brush. I think it looks really interesting. Trying to see if there's any, if you have any questions in the chat, let me know. Because we're going to be here a minute while I color and add shading to the flower. Add a little bit more right here. I think that's nice about having the background already filled in with that purple waterproof ink is that if I go outside the lines, it's not that big of a deal, right? As long, let's see, Tony, or maybe it's Tony, I think it's Tony, is asking if any kind of marker would work for this. If it is a water-based marker, it probably will. So like a water-based marker, like a Tombow, something like that. However, it's not going to work with alcohol markers or any like acrylic markers. It won't work for that. You need something that when you add water to the ink from the marker, that it spreads and bleeds, because that's what I'm essentially doing with the water and the brush. I'm making that ink bleed by adding water to it. How do these compare to my Magello? Magello is a traditional paint, traditional watercolor paint, and so it you could paint in a similar fashion. You just get a little bit of a different effect. All right, so I'm doing what I did with my ink blending before on that other background. Remember how I added the nectar ink, but I made sure that I didn't go all the way to the edge of the flower. I'm going to get these flowers up here first. I'm leaving that edge white, so I'm doing that on this one as well. Adding a little more water in here. I'm also thinking back to that video that I shared on Friday, the one with spring stems, where I mentioned that I specifically wanted to keep little white areas, like little irregular white areas on the petals. I think it really lends itself to a watercolor look when you can do that. Another thing you could do to watercolor like this is you could possibly, I mean, you'd have to be, you know, moving the stencil back and forth quite a bit, but you could actually use the stencil to map out the edge of where you want to be watercoloring with the marker and then lift off the stencil and then watercolor. I think that could be an interesting way to do these flowers as well. It'll work with most dye ink pads as well. Yeah, I'm noticing that comment in the chat. So what I like to do with Karin markers specifically is work in layers and add different colors of ink or different colors of the marker as I move along. So I generally start with the lightest shade. So that's why I'm starting with this pale peach shade. And then I'm going to work up to the darker shades. I'm just being really messy and organic with this. I'm not being too fussy as I'm adding on the color, but I do want to make sure, just like I did with my ink blending, I want to make sure that this light shade extends out far enough so that as I add the other shades on top, that you can still see a little bit of this color. All right, we're getting close here. Just finish this flower and then a little bit of that flower in the corner. I'm just dipping my brush in my bucket of water to bring in more of that water so I can get the color to really spread. All right, I'm just going to get a little bit of that down here since that's a flower. Okay. So that was Soft Peach 2. And now we're going to dry this really quickly, and then we're going to come in with our next color, which is a little bit more of a purple. It's one of my favorites. Michelle's asking, I have Tombow brush markers. Are they at all similar to the Karin? Yes, and that you can get the color to move. I find that the Karin markers, either the original Brush Marker Pros or the Realbrush markers, both of those from Karin, they tend to put down a little bit more ink than the Tombow. So they're a little bit easier to work with just because there is more ink on your paper to begin with. The other thing that I really like about using the Karin markers versus a traditional watercolor is, and maybe you've noticed this, when I use my traditional watercolor sets, even my Magello Mission Gold, the color is vibrant while it's wet on the paper, but as it dries, it does fade back just a little bit. Whereas when I'm using my Karin markers, the color stays very true to when I first painted it. They don't like fade back or they don't lighten as they dry. I have noticed that, and I really do love that about them. All right, now I'm going in with Red Lilac, although I'm starting to wonder if I want to try a different color. We'll see. I'm going to just scribble over here. I'm going to bring it over just really lightly, maybe just right up here, see if I don't know that that's really going to show up that much. That's okay. We're going to go for it. Helps if I hold the brush marker the right direction. Okay. If I bring that in. Okay. I'm okay with that. This is telling me that it's very easy to spread this color, so I'm going to use it very sparingly. And then when I bring it in, I can have a little bit more of an organic shape. This is a very strong color on top of that peach. So I want to make sure I don't put down too much and that it just completely overtakes the peach. Had a little too much water on my brush there. Let's put a little of that in so we can get that kind of spreading a little bit. It's a very small amount of this color. Not having to be really super careful about the edges of the petals because that background is dark already is kind of very freeing. Melissa, I'm using Karin markers. This is their Realbrush Pro markers. Okay, I love that. I love the watercolor look. So I'm just going to come in here and finish these other petals. And I do have one more color to paint on these petals. It's kind of like a really dark red. I might even switch to a brown just to really accentuate the darkness. Or I think there might even be a really dark purple we could do. I think a dark purple might be really pretty. Are all the Karin markers the same? I have some pastel ones and don't move at all with water. It really depends. As far as I know, Karin has two different types of markers. They have pigment markers and they have water-based markers. If you're going to be doing watercoloring with them, you want the water-based markers. You mentioned pastel. That tells me you might have purchased the pigment markers, and they are basically acrylic, and so they're not going to move with water. I think they do share a lot of the same color names, I think. I've never actually compared them, actually, so I'm not entirely sure. But you want the Brush Marker Pros. Those are water-based. Or you want the Realbrush Pros. And I'm using the I think this is Realbrush Pro. Yeah, Realbrush Pro. You want the Pro markers. I think the other ones are they just called pigment? I think they're just called pigment. How do I think the Altenew markers compare? I have not had good success with the Altenew markers, not because that they don't work, but because maybe I got a bad batch or I don't know, but they were very messy. Like the inks got all over my hands. And if you guys have been watching me for any length of time, you know how I have an aversion to ink all over my hands. So because of that, I don't tend to use them. I don't reach for them, even though I do have some. All right. The other thing that's really fun about doing markers like this is that because they do react with water, they react again when you add water on top. I've got a water droplet right here. I don't know if you guys can see it. I'm going to pick it up with a paper towel here in a minute. And just like with distress inks, because they're reactive with water, if you add water droplets on top of painting like this, it's almost like the water reactivates. And if you pick it up with a paper towel, it's almost, you get like a bleached effect. And it can be really fun. And it's a really cool watercolor effect. So I'm going to do that right here, and I'm going to pick it up. Just this right here. You can see how that bleached it. So I think just because that already happened, it's because I'm being messy with my picking up water out of my bucket, I'm going to go ahead and do some water droplets. I was already planning to do some gold, but maybe I'll do some water droplets as well. All right, I need to add a little bit of color right up here just to make that work. I've also got to get those flowers at the bottom. All right, I'm going to add just a little right there. Then this color is so strong. Like I hardly have to touch it with my damp brush and it starts moving. Sometimes some of the Karin markers will almost stain your paper and they don't move. When that happens, I realize, I've discovered if I just add a little bit more paint, it gets it moving again. Okay, I was going to do this burgundy, but I don't think that's the color I want. I think I'm going to go with a dark purple. I'm going to go with this one. This is lilac. That does not seem like that would be a lilac color. That looks really dark. But we're going to go with that and see how it looks. I'm just with my heat tool to dry everything. I just had a thought. I was going to paint the leaves and stems green, but what if I just painted the stems in gold? So, and then the centers of the flowers in gold. I think that would look kind of cool. Huh. Andrea says, I did 4 cards inspired by Christina's live last week. Took me way longer than 1 hour. I kept telling myself that Christina knew what she was doing and so probably went faster. At least I got there. Good. All of those ink blends. Is that what you're talking about? All right, I'm going to do this lilac, which I'm hoping is kind of a darker. Yeah, it's definitely a darker purple. All right, so I'm going to add that in right there. We'll just do a little test. Yeah, that adds just a little drama. I think I probably put too much on that one right there, but we'll see. Getting my brush wet, and I'm hoping I can pick up some color. Yeah, there we go. It did kind of introduce quite a bit of purple, didn't it? So this is, what layers of color can do. It can really add depth. And I think it really makes a watercolor painting makes it more alive. It's just by adding more color on top, you get more contrast. And I think it just can look really pretty. Okay, I'm loving this layering. This layering effect I'm getting. I'm not mad at it at all. I'm kind of wishing some of that magenta color was coming through even more, but I'm okay. Maybe I'll do a little bit less purple on these other ones just so I can get more of that. Actually, that one needs more purple. I just want to get more color going here. All right, add more purple up here. This is coming together really quickly. Surprised. I think this would look even prettier if I just stamped in black, like the background, right? I think that would look even more striking. But I think once we add the gold in those areas, I think it'll look great. I'm using a size 2 round brush. It is linked down in the video description. I think these particular brushes, this is an Escoda Prado brush. I believe you can get them at Amazon and also other fine stores. Oh, wow. I just have a whole lot of water that just came in. That's okay. We'll just grab that right there. Just dripped all over it. Okay. And a little more right here. I love how that first flower is drying. I think it looks awesome. Add a little purple right there, up at the top. All right, we'll just get a little. It's interesting, the background seemed so dark before, and then as I've added more intense purple to the flowers, it's now like the centers of the flowers are looking more dark than that pigment ink that I stamped. So interesting. It's definitely more saturated and vibrant. It's not as muted as the ink that I stamped with. I'm going to bring that purple out a little bit. Yeah, it just needs to fill the petal a little bit more. Fill it, I should say. Get these down here. Yeah, I think if I was going to do this again, I would have just stamped the background in black, just because it's so dramatic. You know what I'm saying? Okay. I think I want to do some water droplets before I move on to add all the gold. Because I don't want to have the water droplets interfere with all of the gold I'm going to be putting on. So, where's my spray bottle? You guys, I swear things walked off while I was gone. I had a whole spray bottle right here. I don't know where it went. I have a brand new bottle that is empty. Give me 1 minute. I'm going to go fill it. Because I feel like I have a little bit. Oh, I just found it. It was around the corner of on the island in my craft room. There's the bottle. Okay. I'm just spraying, and then I can just do some droplets. Kind of like I just want some little droplets breaking up all the painting. Okay. I'll let that sit for just a moment. It's a little bit hard to see on camera right now. And then I'm going to pick it up with a paper towel. We'll be able to see the ink. Yeah. Oh, look at that. I just pulled up all of that right there. Okay, it made some of the areas a little bit more purpley. I mean, it's not a ton of difference, but I think it gave it a little bit of a different texture. I love all this texture up through here. I think it just looks really cool. Okay, I'm going to dry this. Before we do that, I'm going to get my, what is it called? My gold kind of getting wet. So this is my Iuile Watercolors palette. They don't sell it like this. I just purchased all of the Christmas colors and built my own palette. I'm going to be using this color right here, which is Star. I'm going to be using that. So I'm going to grab my little eyedropper, my little bottle of water. I'm just going to add a couple of drops of water, and I'm going to let that really seep in and get the gold really moving. And here's the pencil. Interestingly, do you guys see how it picked up some of the pigment ink? Or it left like water droplet marks? Interesting. I love all the water droplets right through here too. As it dries, I just love it. Okay. I'm going to use the same brush that I was using before. I'm just getting some paper towels ready and opening my ink pads on accident. Okay. Actually, I bet it doesn't really stick, but it'll stick to that. I just wanted to keep it still. So when you're using metallic paints like this, I find that it really benefits you to let the water really soak in. You want the paint to become a consistency of heavy whipping cream. That is how thick you want the paint to be. Like right now, it's still a little bit thin. I want it just a little bit thicker. So I'm just going to let it soak into that pan of color even just a little bit more. And I'm kind of like scraping the hard surface of the paint underneath. Okay, now it's starting to become a better consistency. Do you see the difference? And if you want to check like the opacity, you can like paint it on some tape up there. All right, I'm gonna tip this up just so it's a little bit easier for me to get to. And I'm gonna be painting from this corner down because I'm right-handed and I don't want to put my hand right in it. Okay, so I'm just gonna paint directly on top, and I'm gonna be making everything that's white is going to be gold. I think this is going to be really, really pretty. I'm kind of excited about it. Now, I realize it's not going to be exactly how it is as the background, just as I'm painting. I know it won't be. But I'm just letting that white shape underneath sort of guide me. It won't be perfect, but that's okay. The leaves can sort of be a little blobby. If I wanted to be absolutely precise, I'd get another, a smaller brush. In fact, I'm still tempted to get a smaller brush because I could have it be a little bit more precise. All right, I'm going to drop color in for the center of the flower. It almost gets lost in the with that purple background. I think it would stand out even more if it was on black, but that's okay. All right, so if I tip it in the light, you can kind of see it showing up a little bit more. All right, I'll go ahead and get these leaves and stem. Sorry, I'm like really concentrating. Okay. Do you think you could get a good enough coverage to do a black embossed background? Ooh, you might be able to, depending on the paper. I'm using watercolor paper, so it's a little bit textured, but you probably could do it on like a hot press watercolor paper because hot press watercolor paper tends to be a little bit more smooth. So you might be able to get a better stamped impression. Okay, I am loving how this is turning out. I'm already in love with it. Now, I was considering doing some gold splatter. I still might, and I think that would help bring the background into the mix here. But I also don't want it to cover up the flowers, you know what I'm saying? But I guess we could use some Post-its or something and kind of cover up the flowers themselves so that as we do the splatter that it won't go onto it. Adding a little water to my gold paint here because it's starting to get a little bit thick. Okay. I love that against the purple background. I'm using an Escoda Prado round sized 2 brush right now, but I'm considering moving to an even smaller brush, but maybe not because it's doing the job. It's getting the job done. It does tend to blob out a little bit with this paint because it's kind of a thicker paint, but it does a good enough job. All right, we'll get this up here. In fact, maybe I'll do the center of the flower first. If any of you have one of those like gold chrome markers, gosh, where were they from? I think Molotov or Molotov. I think it's Molotov. They do some chrome markers and they have a gold and a silver, I think. They are super shiny bright. And I think it would look incredible on top of this. It's a very different looking background. I'm not mad at it. Oh, I'm hearing like a little tiny squeak. I think my cats are playing with their toys in the hallway. We just got them a bunch of new cat toys. And it makes me so happy to see them playing with them because like Sophie and Daphne, and then before them, Manny, my other cat. I didn't know them as kittens. I didn't get those cats until they were, well, Sophie was the youngest one, and she was 6 years old already. And I didn't really know what kind of toys they like to play with. But Kevin and Fred are so playful 24/7. You know, they're still just a year and a half old. So it is so fun to buy toys for them because they will play with practically anything, including things that are not toys like boxes. For those of you who were in a live a couple weeks ago where I was talking about Fred's eye, we had a good visit with the vet. We are just in a holding pattern. We're just going to watch his eye for a bit. Hopefully it will heal on its own and we won't have to do any surgery. That's what we're hoping for. All right, just a few more little spots to paint here. I'm not going to want to cover up any of this background. Okay, what is that? Is that... I think that's part of a leaf. Yeah, it is. It is. How are my ears and my balance? Well, I'm fairly certain that what I suspected it is, which is patulous eustachian tube dysfunction. I'm pretty sure it's correct. Just because they say to alleviate any symptoms with that, like avoid caffeine, make sure you're hydrated. And when I'm doing those two things, it does help. So just from process of elimination, I think that's my issue. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of speed dry this. Okay, I've got one little spot where it still needs to dry. I'm just going to get the corner of it. Andrew was asking about my mom giving Fred his eye medicine. She was a champ. Thankfully, by the time my mom was taking care of him, he was down to just regular like dry eye drops. So it wasn't like the medicated stuff. It was basically just some eye drops to keep his eyes moist. So anyway, I am kind of in love with this. It's so different, right? Okay, that is still wet. Hold on. Okay. All right, let's remove this from the board and we can very quickly finish this up into a card. I'm thinking I don't want to cover this up. So we're going to have a really simple greeting just from my spring stems stamp set. Let's see, maybe I should use my oval frames for this. That would be really pretty. Hold on, because then I could really maximize the amount of pattern that I'm using. I'm hoping I can do that anyway. I'm going to get rid of my water bucket while I can. Yeah, that like a deep green. Yeah, for sure. Like anything like a dark background would look gorgeous on this. Let me rinse out all of the gold shimmer to the bottom of that. Otherwise, I will go to use it the next time I'm painting. And I'm like, I'm getting gold shimmer everywhere. That would be so weird. Okay. Alrighty. Pretty sure is that dry? Yep, we're good. All right, I can put my hardboard away. And then I'm hoping I can do, oh, I don't know where my ovals are. They're hiding. There they are. Okay. So I have my A7 Oval Basics. And I think this could be really pretty on a big card, but I think it's going to really kind of pinch it. So maybe we should do A2 Oval Basics. Okay, cut it out of this one. Oh, I thought that's not going to use enough of the card. Maybe I need to do my square thin frames and just make a square card. Just go with it. Why not? Which I believe that came out this month too. I haven't even really had a chance to use much of them. And I'll just cut it down to the perfect little square. I can get this open. There we go. All right, I'm thinking, is this one big enough? That one would be perfect. So I'll cut this out and then I'll cut it out of gold, and then we can have the gold frame on it as well on a 5.5 by 5.5 inch card. In fact, maybe I'll just cut this down. Yeah, I think I will. So I'm taking a measurement of the interior of this square. I think I want it like 4 3/4 square. I'm totally going to sneeze. Hold on, I'm going to try to mute. Okay, that was a very strong sneeze. Okay, I'm glad I muted it. Okay, so 4 3/8. Just cutting this down. That seems like a really small amount. Are we sure with 4 3/8? Yeah, I guess it is. Huh, okay. Just seems like I'm cutting off a lot. Four 3/8. Okay. I'm trying to get the flowers centered where I want them. Okay. Having to like go around and cut it quite a few times. Okay. Oh, I think that'll be pretty. Okay. I still feel like I cut off a ton. But like once I cut out that frame, then it can go right there in the center. Yeah. Okay. And then on top of like a white card base, I'm thinking. I've got to go grab my gold cardstock though, so I can cut this frame out. Where are you, gold cardstock? There you are. Okay. I want a nice gold frame. It was a lot of slicing because I wanted to get the exact area of the painting that I wanted. And so I was being very, very conservative as I started cutting off the edges. I first cut off all the white that was around the outside edge. And then I started moving in closer and closer until it was the size I needed. So that's why it took so long. And there were so many cuts. Okay, when it comes to cutting with these thin frames, I find I get the best results if I kind of turn it at a diagonal when it goes through my die cutting machine. I'm also going to put my clean plate on top so that the center is can be saved and used. All right. So now we have a nice, there we go. Have a nice frame that we can put around that. And then this piece I can save with my gold cardstock. Alrighty, we'll put that back in there. And then I think as far as the card itself, we're going to have it be 5.5 by 5.5, is that right? Yeah, 5.5 by 5.5. Okay, so I'm going to take some cardstock and I'm just going to cut it down for a square card. I'm trying to figure out where I have my non-cut cardstock. Where are you? Oh, I guess I could just take a regular half sheet. No, that wouldn't work. It'd have to be a half sheet the other direction. All right, found some. Actually, that feels like 80 pound. I don't want an 80 pound card base. I want 110 pound. Where is it? Da-da-da. Where are you? This will work. Okay. 5.5. Okay. Oh, sorry for that. That little blip. I bumped my camera cord. All right. I'll just score this at 5.5. And then we're going to be putting that on right there. And then that'll go right there in the center. Oh, that's going to be so pretty. All right, I'm trying to figure out what the best greeting would be right there in the center. I was going to do something from Spring Stems, but now I'm questioning that again because I kind of want to have it cut out of gold. So I'm looking through my stash. It will not be listed in the supplies down below because I'm changing things on the fly here. But I'm going to try to find a die cut greeting that would work well. Okay, that's a possibility. We'll pull that out to the side. Just looking through my little stash here. See if I can find something I want to use. That could work. It's a little big though. Hold on. I don't have all of my product sorted by type. It's just kind of all loose. So I have to kind of go through and find it. All right, I could do one of my one-word greetings. Those are nice and small. That would work. I can just cut it out of gold. But also those could possibly get a little bit lost because they are so dainty. So something that's a little bit more substantial might work better. I could do like this thick and thin thanks. Just do like the thicker thanks. I don't know how I feel about that. Let's see. I'm just trying to figure out what would be the best. Gosh, I have a lot of Christmas product. It's almost as if I do a lot of Christmas cards. Okay, how about this one would be pretty. Loved and Happy Dies, and do the You Are Loved. And put that right there in the center. Just in gold. I think that would look really nice. Okay. I think the new framed script hellos would be a little bit too dainty for this particular background. So, okay, I'm going to switch to a different die cutting machine, which is also not listed down in the supply section. But some of you guys know this, there's nothing more annoying to me. Well, just kidding, I'm exaggerating. But I do find it annoying when you cut out a die cut out of metallic paper and you can see the little circular nubs from where you punch to release it from the die. It annoys the crap out of me. So I tend to do all of my metallic gold die cutting using my Gina K Intricate, and I take the pressure down as much as possible. Like it's on die cut and then it's down on like less pressure. I just find it looks so much better and it works out well. All right, so here's our little cutting mat. We're going to do the You Are Loved from the Loved and Happy dies. Actually, we'll just put that down right there. Actually, I want to make sure it's not taking up the center there. And come on, how come you're not going in? Hello, hello. Do I have it too? No, it should be fine. Sorry, you guys are totally seeing my hair, seeing it in my head. I'm just wondering why it's not going in. Do I have one too many plates on here? No. I'm so confused. Oh, I do have one too many plates. Haha. Take that off. Now it should work. Maybe. There we go. I had it. I was storing the other plate on top. Okay. I'm like, it's on loose pressure. Why would it be doing it? Okay. Oh, see? No little nibs, but it did cut it out. Yes. That is what we want. Oh, beautiful. It's just perfect. Look at that. No little releasey nubs. Oh, it's beautiful. I love it. I'm thinking maybe I want to stack this. So I am going to cut out the die a couple more times. Let me get this intricate out of the way. I can use my regular Griffin Empress for this. And I'm going to make sure my little plate that confused me is not stored with the rest of it. All right. Back to my regular die cutting sandwich. How do you not get the nubs? It's too much pressure. What is causing all those little notches, like these little nubs that come from the little circles, is when you have a lot of pressure in your die cutting sandwich. So by using the Gina K Intricate, where I'm dialing off the pressure to the point where it's just enough to cut the paper, that's what allows for not having any of those weird little nubby spots. So I'm going to use my Griffin Empress, and then it is going to have those little nubs, and you'll see them. But these are going to be the layers underneath as I stack. so it doesn't matter. Okay, and I don't have any extra shims in my die cutting sandwich right now. Oh, it didn't do the nose very much. That's good. I can still see him a little bit. It's probably a little hard to see. Did you see that right there? Right there. You can see it a little bit. It sometimes really shows a lot on like colored cardstock. And it didn't really used to bother me all that much until I started taking like really up close photos of my cards. And then I was like, oh, I can see those little nubs everywhere. And it totally bugged me. I'm the same way with, that's why I don't use liquid glue all that much, because if you're not really careful and only apply the slightest amount of liquid glue, it can warp your paper. And then when you take a photo, you can see it. I know. I'm just being picky. I'm a perfectionist. What can I say? Yeah, Pam, it's definitely more apparent on metallic cardstock for sure. And that's why for the most part, I don't worry about it unless I'm cutting metallic cardstock. Then if I'm cutting metallic cardstock, I break out my Intricut machine for sure. And I realized that it's like ridiculous that you would have like a specific die cutting machine for different things. Like really, if you're not as picky as me, just have the one die cutting machine and it's fine, right? Okay. What size plates do I have? I just have the plates that come with the machine. Although I think the Gina K one might be is it the metallic one? Like the magnet? Well, I don't know. I'm not sure. I think it's just the one that came with the machine. All right, let's stack and adhere all this stuff. And then we'll be done. Oh, Monkey King Coffee says, I push the bumps down with a ball tool. Not a bad idea. Not a bad idea at all. All right, here's how I do all my stacked greetings really, really fast. You need to have your tweezers nearby. And I'm going to do, hello. I have been crafting for a week, so my glue has decided to be finicky. There we go. Just adding a bunch of dots on the die cut. After I've got one die cut done, I add dots to the next, just really fast. I'm not being really picky and particular where the dot of glue is added. And then I just very quickly stack those. And while the glue is still wet, I can push those together and get them stacked really well. All right. While I've got that going, I'm just going to add a few more dots. And then I'll put the gold layer on top. And when you have kind of a chunkier greeting like this, that's all stuck together, hello, it works really well. All right, so we're stacked, all perfect. I'm gonna put a paperweight on there just for a second, just for even pressure. And while that is kind of drying, I'll go ahead and start adhering this all together. Okay. I have the negative area that I cut out earlier. I'm going to use that as I put on my little frame. So I'm taking some repositionable, this is like Easy Dot repositionable adhesive, and I'll put that in the center of my card. Just about like that. And then I'm going to go around the outer edge with just a thin line of glue. It doesn't even have to be a constant line. It can skip a little bit as long as you have enough on there to kind of get the corners down. But I want it pretty close to the gold cardstock so that when I put the frame on, it sticks. All right, and then I can just lay that gold frame down. And then before it has a time to dry, I'm going to peel back the corner and pop up that interior. Kind of feel for anything that is staying behind. And now I have that frame on there perfectly without being too fussy about it. I'm going to put this on foam adhesive. Got a little bit of, oh, I'm at the tail end. I don't think that's going to work. I'm grabbing a new roll. This is actually a roll of 2mm foam tape from scrapbook.com. I really do like to use foam tape for adhering watercolor panels because sometimes you can get it really kind of warping because of all the water you've added to your paper when you were painting. And the foam adhesive kind of is almost a little bit forgiving. Like it'll really stick to the surface of the watercolor paper, and it will also stick to the surface of the cardstock. And the foam itself adds stability, and it really does prevent that watercolor panel from peeling up from the surface of the card. So just over the years, I always use foam adhesive for adhering watercolor panels down, as long as it's, you know, smaller than the actual card base itself. Okay. All right, I'm going to hold this up so I can kind of see it a little bit. Get this position just right before I really press it down. That looks about right. Okay. Do I date it to know how long it lasts me? I have no idea. I had two big rolls that were about this size. I probably bought it 2 years ago, and I just finished that one. Okay. Okay, I think that's going to be really pretty. Do I need to cut the white shadow layer, or should I leave it just like that? I also could move it. I don't even know. I think in the center is probably going to be best. I think just like that's probably okay. I could cut the shadow really fast just to see. You know, it's not gonna take too long to do that. We'll just cut it real quick. Add up white. Oh my word, it doesn't fit on that cardstock I already had cut. That's cute. I don't think I want to do vellum. I think that might be a little fussy. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it in white. All right, let's see. needs the white. Yeah, I think it needs the white. Okay. We'll add a little glue on the back of this. I have the opening on the card to the side, if that's what you're wondering. All right, I'm just adding a few dots of glue. Some little squiggles of glue. Then I'm going to try to get this on here just right. Yeah, just like that. Yeah. And it does cover up quite a bit of the leaves and stuff, but I'm not all that concerned. Okay. Put that right there. There we go. Ta-da. All right. Whole card, hour and a half. And we even had the ink blending on that other card started. Remember that, where we started with that one? We were stenciling. Yeah, got quite a bit done today. All right, I'm going to do a quick spiel for those watching the edited replay, and then we'll close up for the night. So give me just 1 minute. All right, so here is the finished card for tonight. Opens from the side. I think it actually turned out really dramatic with all of the gold and the dark background and kind of the brighter flowers. I think it worked out really well. This was a fun experiment. I'm excited to try this technique on other kind of backgrounds and things like that. I think it could be really, really fun. Or even like on some of my stencils where you just have the background, that you can do the color and then you can do the other little individual images. What if the individual images are watercolored? That would be really fun. I think there's a fun way to use backgrounds and stencils and watercoloring together on a card. So here is the card for today. Hope you guys enjoyed. All the supplies are listed down below in the video description, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Okay, I think this turned out really well. I'm very happy with it. Hope you guys got some fun ideas on what you can do with watercolor markers and also like backgrounds and things like that. I think it turned out pretty well. Hey Sika, when did you sneak in? I didn't see Sika earlier. Hey Sika. Do you guys have any questions before we close up for the night? Let's see. Have a good night, Andrea. Thanks for moderating and being in the live. Have a good night. If you have any questions or if I missed them earlier because I was busy crafting, feel free to repeat them. Beth is asking about Color My Life app. I don't have any sort of app that takes, stock of my stash. In fact, as I've been working on my own product line longer and longer, I haven't been bringing in many other outside products, not at the rate I used to anyway. Let's see. Still scrolling up, seeing if I'm catching everything. A lot of you were suggesting the vellum. Now I'm wondering if I should have tried the vellum. I did not put glue on the back of the foam tape for wiggle room. I thought about it, but then I didn't. Let's see here. All right, I'm going to close up for the night. I'm going to go make dinner for me and my husband. I think we're having breakfast for dinner, which I think is one of my favorites. Oh, 70 is asking, when is mail call? Probably next week, maybe on Wednesday or Thursday of next week. I'd like to give it a little bit of time into the new month, and just in case people mail in some additional cards. But Here's the finish card for today. Love those colors. Anyway, have a lovely evening. I hope you find some time to craft in the next few days. And I will see you all very, very soon. We've got one more live next week, and then we're getting right into the May release, which I'm so excited for. I can't wait for you guys to see it. Have a lovely week, and I will see you guys next time. Thanks for watching, and thanks for joining me tonight.